Right, I think we'll make a start. So, good evening, everybody. Please can I welcome everyone to this meeting of the Winchester Town Forum taking place in the Wharton Suite, Winchester Guildhall. The time is 6:30. My name is Councillor Chris Westwood, chairperson for this meeting. The meeting is being live streamed and recorded to the Council's YouTube channel. Subtitles are available and advice on how to turn this on is set out on our website. Can everyone please ensure your mobile phones are on silent? In the unlikely event that it is necessary to evacuate the building, the fire alarm will sound. Please follow all instructions given to you by our team. Can I welcome members of the public to the meeting, and I will invite you forward when it's time for you to make your contribution. So turning to the agenda, do we have any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for absence to receive from Councillor Aaron and from Councillor Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you. And disclosures of interest, Councillor Todd.
I need to declare that I have a disclosable pecuniary interest in respect of items number 6 and 8 on the agenda due to my additional role as a Hampshire County Councillor. However, as there is no material conflict of interest regarding these items, I have a dispensation granted by the Audit and Governance Committee that enables me to speak and vote on these matters.
Thank you, Councillor Todd. Any other declarations of interest? No. So item 3, chairperson's announcements. I do have an announcement this evening, and it concerns the community governance review for the unparished wards in Winchester. So in January 2025, the Winchester Town Forum formally requested that the City Council undertake a community governance review covering the unparished town wards. The request followed announcements from government of its intention to create new, larger unitary councils across Hampshire in 2028, which would be responsible for the services currently delivered by a county council and a district council. A community governance review could result in the creation of a new parish council for the Winchester town area, which would mean that even when the new councils come into existence, local representation will remain for the people living there. I'm pleased to announce that the City Council has now launched the first stage of public consultation on whether to create a new parish or town council for the town area, and this will run until the end of the year. Winchester City Council wants to hear from local residents, businesses and community groups to explore whether there would be support for the creation of a new parish council for the currently unparished parts of the city. With so much change on the horizon for Hampshire, we want to make sure our residents living in Winchester town area have sufficient community engagement, local democracy, and that the delivery of local services is as effective as possible. To support this consultation, drop-in public information engagement events have been arranged so that local people can learn more about the consultation process, talk to officers and councillors, and have their say. And these will take place on the 12th of November in this building in the Guildhall, on the 18th of November at Badger Farm Community Centre, on the 26th of November at the Community Lounge, Henry Beaufort School, and on the 29th of November, again in the Guildhall here in Winchester. Following the first stage, a further second stage consultation is expected next summer in 2026, where draft recommendations will be published for feedback. And the full City Council is expected to make the final decision in the autumn of 2026. We would love to hear from as many people as possible, so please take some time to let us know what you think. Moving on to item number 4, minutes of the previous meeting held on the 11th of September. These are in your meeting pack, pages 5 to 12. Are these agreed? Thank you. And moving on to item number 5, public participation. I have two members of the public who wish to speak this evening. Mr. Tate, I believe you want to speak at this point in the meeting. And Madeline Dury, you also want to speak at this point in the meeting. And can I also welcome, sitting at the back of the room, Stephanie Danby, who is the Chief Exec of Chesel Theatre and here to observe the proceedings today. Thank you. Mr. Tate, I think you know the way to do this, and you settle yourself down. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to address the town forum. Every day I walk through Cross Keys Passage and through to King's Walk, and obviously every day I look at the old RAOB building, which has fallen into an awful derelict state. The building feels like a terrible indictment of the lack of progress of any regeneration of the centre of Winchester, whether the site is within the central Winchester regeneration area or outside of it. I would mention that back in September 24, a planning application to redevelop the RAOB site was refused by the planning committee. You may be interested, the reason for refusal was that the proposed development failed to recognise, protect and enhance the surrounding character of the area, including its historic features. The proposal would have resulted in an overbearing presence and would have harmed the setting of the surrounding listed buildings. I was therefore very interested to hear from the very capable planning officer who dealt with that site, who's now been pinched into private practice and doing very well, that he was actually going to approve the scheme, but the decision was overridden by his line manager. Interesting for me that at the same time, the council refused a proposal for 149,150 High Street, which when I looked at it again for an update, just in October, almost the identical scheme had been approved. The height of that is the same height as the RAOB scheme and is slightly higher, and so was the 149,150 to the Wall Staplers Hall. So it got me thinking. I thought, to refresh myself over what's happening in central Winchester, I spent some time looking through the website and various council papers and to see what jigs are up to. The Central Winchester Regeneration New Life in a Timeless City website has not been updated for over a year. And there is no mention that the council has served notice on the businesses Poundland, Project, Winchester Pilates, Open House Deli to say that you've got to get out. No mention of that whatsoever. The authority goes on to say, as it invariably does, that it's engaging with the public, but doesn't seem to be engaging with the tenants of its own buildings. I also went on to the Cabinet Committee Regeneration. The last committee on regeneration was the 15th of October 24. There's no new regeneration committee scheduled. Where is the leadership from this council? And when will you get round to actually delivering an acceptable scheme? And for someone who I would like to think I've got a pretty good idea of what's happening, there is no available information on the website. The website's pointless. And I spoke to a very senior architect as I walked through Winchester. I said to him, what do you think's happening? He said, I don't know. So possibly an update of the website would be much overdue. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. Councillor Todd, do you want to respond, or is this something we should take offline and just review?
I mean, I'm happy to take back any comments that relate to the website. I think we held a public event. Mr. Hendy will correct me. It was a month or two ago. So we are holding public events, and they've been very clear in those events about what the timetable is, and we're planning one. I think at least one before Christmas, which will provide quite a major update as part of our move forward to finalise the scheme ready for a planning application. So I absolutely take the comment that the website hasn't been kept up to date. It should have the previous slides on it. I would stress that the place that you should normally, or the best place to start with, is the Jigsaw website in terms of what they're putting forward. But we will, well, I will have a conversation with the communications team. There is up-to-date information, I think, on the Jigsaw website that relates to the regeneration project, and I will certainly make sure that the slides that were presented a few weeks a few weeks ago are made available so that everybody can be clearer about the timetable. But we continue to work at pace. We continue to have regular updates and consultation public events. The next one is coming soon, and we continue to work in order to get the plan agreed, the planned way forward agreed before the end of this financial year. Okay, I've just had a correction from people who looked both at right, okay, so I'm looking now at the regeneration page on the website. Thank you very much, colleagues. The Jigsaw partnership and places, the last consultation was the 17th and 18th of July. The drop-in information events are there. And they include links to the information boards that were presented in July. We'll email them through to you. I've just promised to do something we've already done. Good Lord, that's fast action on our part. Clearly, there's something wrong with the navigation of the entire website, but I will have that conversation, but I will not be having a conversation to say that we haven't put the information on the website, because it is there, as we can all see there. And I will send through details to you, Mr. Tate, so that you can look at it and see what the latest status of the project is.
Thank you, Councillor Todd. Can I ask Madeline, would you like to join us?
Thank you. I'm Madeline Dury. I'm Chief Executive of Youth Options, and I want to take this opportunity to talk to the councillors about the work of Youth Options. For those of you that don't know, we were approached by Winchester Street Reach trustees about a year and a half ago around taking over the responsibility for the youth work within Winchester. Their CEO had decided to resign, and the trustees understood that it was difficult to be running any charity, particularly a young people's charity, with all of the responsibilities for staff training and safeguarding, and they approached us to know whether or not we were interested in taking it over. We've been working with Winchester Street Reach for a number of years on a soft support for them, and we are delighted that we took over the team and we continue to provide the vast majority of what was already available for young people in Winchester in the past year. We have increased our provision, and this month alone we have had funding from the Office of Police and Crime Commissioner to include 2 additional nights of street-based youth work within the town centre. So we are very pleased with what we have been able to do. For those of you that don't know Youth Options, we do more than just the street-based youth work. We also do targeted support for children and young people who have been affected by negative life experiences, and we're working with a number of schools within Winchester on key work, one-to-one support for children and young people who are struggling in the school environment, often with mental health issues, or are unable to regulate themselves as well as they would like to within the school environment. And we also do progression opportunities. We work with young people who are not in education, employment and training, and provide training programs for them, employability programs. And we are hoping, subject to finding some funding, that we will be able to offer that to neat young people within the Winchester area. One of the things that I am coming here to talk to you about today is we currently have a youth club at the Unit 12 in Winnell. It has been very successful. Winchester Street Reach opened it about a year and a half ago, and it is great. It has a lot of young people coming to it. Unfortunately, the space is not an ideal space for young people. It is a shared space with other users of the building, and some of the issues that we have had with our young people disrupting other areas mean that we are actively looking for new space within Winchester, probably closer to the city centre, where young people can drop in and get support from our wonderful youth support workers. And my second request is, as you've just been discussing around local government reorganisation, is a plea to not forget the need for young people in those future plans. It is vital that support for ongoing youth support work happens within the city. Youth workers play a very special role. They are not teachers, they are not parents, they are not police. They sit as trusted adults and enable young people to have safe conversations around issues that they may not be raising in other more formal areas. And we and our youth support workers play a really key role in bridging those gaps, providing advice and guidance to those young people, nudging them, and most importantly, making sure that they're linked back into the safeguarding systems that they need.
Thank you very much. And can I just thank you for the work that you and your organisation do, which is so vital. I mean, the mental health of young people is in the news almost daily. And as a forum here, we are well aware of the need for provision for facilities for youths within this city. I think we all struggle to take it forwards, but you know, we need to work more collaboratively with organisations such as yourself. The agenda is fairly short, members, so if you do have any questions for Madeline, then I think I can take a few questions at this point. Councillor Tippett Cooper.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you so much for coming, Madeline. It really do echo what Councillor Westwood has said. The work the youth options do in Street Reach is absolutely brilliant. And I'm a volunteer director at Unit 12, so I'm aware of the sort of the ins and outs of the difficulties that have been experienced recently. And it's, you know, absolutely no criticism at all. Street Reach and youth options and the young people involved, they are being supported really, really well. But as you say, the space I think is not quite right for what it would be, ideally. So I have a question around what that space would look like ideally for Street Reach if it was the case. I just hasten to add, I was speaking to Councillor Bartha about this and the work Street Reach do, the amount of benefit it has, both economically, socially, and the amount it saves other authorities and organisations by the support that the young people are given, is so difficult to measure, but it must be absolutely astronomical. So thank you so much for all the work you do. And yes, I mean, what would an ideal space look like for Street Reach, do you think?
So a number of things. So the first is, as we've learned, not co-located with other services that are happening at the same time. Ground floor space would be more appropriate, and a direct entrance into it. We do recognise that young people travel, but they only travel certain distances. So the reason that we are looking for space closer to the city centre is that we don't want to lose the support that we're able to give young people who are already coming into Unit 12. On the other hand, if we went to the other side of the city, then they might not come. So it's that kind of space, easily accessible for young people, enable us to have a big enough room so that when we are doing our youth club and they're doing those things, it doesn't feel overwhelming. A lot of the young people that come to us, our youth clubs, struggle with those sort of social environments, and so being able to have a big enough space where they can hang out with their friends, feel safe but not be overwhelmed is really quite important.
Thank you. Any other questions for Madeline? Councillor Todd.
Just a quick comment on your point about youth support, particularly within the context of local government reorganisation. Certainly the bid that's been submitted by this council jointly with, I think, 12 of us in the end, explicitly talks about youth provision, and it talks about how the fact that something of a smaller and more local scale than the current county council arrangements hopefully will mean that we can do that community-based work that is so important, and actually at a time when local government's under deep financial pressure, actually saves huge amounts of money if we can get prevention right and help young people who may be having a challenging time to get on a better path before the cost of dealing with that is much higher.
Yeah, thank you, I appreciate that.
Councillor Batho.
Thank you, Madeline. It's good to see you again, and thank you again for the work that you and your group do within the city. I just wanted to ask about some of the areas that I think as a council we're concerned that we might not be reaching in terms of some of the marginalised in the provision of our services. One such is the availability of safe spaces in parks for young women and girls. I'm just wondering what sort of assistance you could make with sort of identifying and supporting the sort of provision of that within the Winchester City area. Thank you.
Yeah, so we have a youth ambassador program that we've been running for a year where we work with young people who are not the young people that you would normally find on a school council and those usual places. They need a lot of support in building their confidence in order to give their views, but when they've got that, they don't stop. In fact, I've got a report that they did. They surveyed young people across Hampshire about their needs, and they identified 3 key things for young people generally around education, and particularly around sort of peer pressure, relationships, and how they have healthy relationships with each other and help to regulate their behaviour, mental health and well-being, and poverty. They would be very pleased to be part of any kind of research you want to do about what young people want. We were involved in a project a couple of years ago, again looking at what young women particularly felt about safe spaces, and it's a very simple ask that most young people want. They want a safe space that's well lit, that they can hang out with their friends, and they need to know that there are other people there, who trusted adults again, who they're able to turn to if there are antisocial behaviour going on. But we'd be very happy to be involved in that.
Councillor Tibbet-Cooper.
Thank you, Chair, for indulging me, and thank Madeline as well. I've got a question, Madeline, about how you link in as a service with the police. One of the issues that our constituency in St Bartholomew Ward is experiencing at the moment is some difficulties around the old leisure centre site and some difficult behaviours of young people there. The police and antisocial behaviour officers for the council are doing a really good job trying to manage that. And I wondered whether do they? I appreciate in those scenarios often it's the young people needing support rather than sort of sort of penalties, as it were. And that's where you folks come in and do a really good job. So I was wondering, do you get sort of a liaison with the police and the council's ASB team to help you identify where young people are to help them?
Yeah, and in fact, the funding that we've had from the Office of Police Crime Commissioner allows us some additional time for our team leader to be engaged in those meetings to make sure that actually we are communicating with them. So we do have a good relationship with the police and the local officers. It can always be better, and timing of that information so that we can be in the right places at the right time is always useful.
Thank you. Councillor Becker.
Thank you. Hi, it's nice to see you. Again, we met this morning, but we have been having lots of discussions with youth options with Peter North in the recent months. And he's mentioned a project in Millbrook that you've been running. And I wondered if you could explain a little bit more about that to give a bit more flavour to what it is you're looking to do in Winchester.
Yeah, so we were fortunate enough to get a government grant to refurbish a youth centre in Millbrook, which was quite a significant grant, about £1 million, and enabled us to put in a sort of purpose-built counselling room for young people, a smaller activity room in a larger space, which became the youth club space. And it also has a cafe in there that provides training for young people who are not in education, employment training. So it was a really successful project. We've been open for about a year, and then we generate our own income from that by renting out the space to other service users when we're not using it. So it's within the community, for the community, and is extremely well used.
We are hoping to come.
Yeah,
soon.
Anybody who'd like to come and visit, you'd be very welcome.
Any final question before we move on? I have one myself, and you may have touched on it with Councillor Becker today, or other conversation you may have, but as a local authority, and you must deal with a lot of other local authorities, are there any tips or guidance you could pass on? What have you seen that's successful, what's really helped you that we could possibly learn from elsewhere? Just a couple of
good
things.
question. I think it is about partnership working. It is about joining the dots. You as the local authority and councillors, you know what's happening in your local area, you know where the needs are, you know the complaints from your constituents, and that's always really key to help us to do our job better. I think the switched on local authorities, and Councillor Todd referred to it within the local government organisation, they understand the need in their area, and they are small enough to recognise the impact of the work that we do. Working with Hampshire is too big a local authority. They don't understand what the needs are in a particular local area. So The downside is that if you work in too small an area, young people are transient. They don't stop at your parish borders or your ward borders. They move. And so understanding that when you're looking at funding, not looking at it in too small a pot is also really important, because if you're a parish council and you only want to fund in your area, actually chances are we're working with those young people in the city centre or in another part. They are still young people from that particular parish. So getting that geography right is really key.
My final parting point is we have Stephanie at the back, who is chairman of the Chesil Theatre, and going forwards, there is more capability you're looking to provide for youth within your theatre group as well. Going forward, so linking you to people like Stephanie, I think is really important. That's something we can do as well into local organisations, business and so on. Right, thank you very much.
Super, thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving to item 6. So, Mr. Kennedy, would you like to join us at the table? So this is the Winchester Town Accounts medium-term financial position. And Councillor Lurney, do you want to introduce? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. As chair of the Winchester Town Forum Informal Account Group, I'm bringing forward the usual update paper on the Winchester Town Account medium-term financial position for discussion prior to us recommending a budget to Cabinet in January. In addition to that discussion, we have 2 other recommendations on the paper. Firstly, to approve additional expenditure of £60,000 for emergency tree works and an allocation of community infrastructure levy of £50,000 to the Chesil Theatre. With the successful implementation of savings, the town account is in financially a better position than when we last considered the budget, and the informal town account group are suggesting the following changes. Firstly, to remove the budget reduction for grants and vision delivery, leaving this budget at £60,000. Secondly, a £50,000 increase in expenditure on public conveniences to reflect increased costs and moving more in line with charges to parishes. Finally, the requirement for an extra £60,000 expenditure on the emergency tree works has highlighted the need to increase the baseline budget for trees by £30,000 to facilitate more planned maintenance. With these amendments, the town account reserve balance is projected to fall below the recommended 15% of expenditure, and members will have to consider this when we recommend the final budget and level of council tax to Cabinet in January. The £50,000 proposed SIL contribution to extending the Chesil Theatre will help provide an improved community theatre facility for the town. This will still leave an uncommitted balance of over £200,000 for other projects, but I think this is a very worthwhile thing for us to commit funds to. When the Chesil came to talk to us in September, the forum were very supportive for the project that's proposed, and I think it's great that we're able to help in this way. Mr. Kennedy is here to assist, and we're both happy to take questions and welcome further discussion on the content of the paper.
Thank you, Councillor Lurney. So, members, any questions on the paper? I'm looking around the room and I'm seeing no questions. Councillor Reach.
Thanks, Chairman. I often ask this question. We can see that the reserves are healthy and growing across the period. Are we investing as much as we could be? Do we think we've got the right level of provision for the future, or could we be a bit bolder, and could we spend a bit more and do more investment and do more good things?
We could do more. However, we did set the recommended 15% reserve balance for good reasons. I think the extra £60,000 required for emergency tree works highlights why we have reserves. And in the past, we have, for example, had to carry out emergency work on some of the bridges that fall within the city, within the town forum responsibility, which have taken big chunks out. Now, at the moment, we have the ability to fall back on city council reserves if really needed, but I think it's appropriate that we do try and keep reserves at a sensible level. I would like to see the town forum be more ambitious about investing funding, but that does require an increase in income.
Thank you. Any further questions? I have one then. There's a statement in there that the annual review of fees and charges is currently underway and covers cemeteries and open spaces. Is that progressing, and when will we see the outcome of that?
I'm looking at Mr. Hendy to a degree here. Certainly, we're still awaiting results from the review of the crematoria. The work on open spaces is ongoing, but we do need to complete that fairly quickly because we do have a number of organisations who want to hold events in our open spaces in the coming year, and we want to make sure that not only are we pricing that space in the correct way, but also that we're managing it so that we're not only encouraging commercial organisations to come forward and hold festivals, for example, but also that we're giving the opportunity for the local community to hold events in our open spaces and provide for cheaper public benefit, if you like.
Thank you. Councillor Batho.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to put a point to the committee, the Town Forum, in that it's been a long time supporter of the activities of Winchester Speedwatch. Indeed, it funded the original equipment that is still used on a regular basis. When I undertake Speedwatch with other members of the team, it's clear that there's public concern about traffic that exceeds the speed limits. Residents have attended the Town Forum requesting speed indicator devices to make drivers aware of their speed. I'm asking the Town Forum consider evaluating the installation of these devices, identify the capital and revenue costs associated, and include this into the budget for the next financial year. Thank you.
Councillor Learning.
I'm very happy to do that if other members of the Town Forum wish to support that we investigate that as part of the budget.
Okay, well, I'll come to Councillor Becker before me.
Thank you. It was just to pick up on a point that Councillor Lurney raised in respect of charging for the use of open spaces. We did see, following a recent event at River Park, quite significant damage to the trees and to the grass and to the pathways around the park. So I just wanted to make sure that when we are charging for those events that we are making adequate provision for remedying any damage that is caused.
Yes, it is a booking condition that damage be remedied, but of course we also want to make sure that organisations are responsible and put measures in place to stop this damage happening in the first place. Remedying things is never ideal.
Okay, Councillor Cooper.
So on the first point, Councillor Barthow's point, I fully support his submission. I think in St Bartholomew's there's a real concern about speed compliance on Hyde Street in particular, and also North Walls, although that falls between wards. The speed of cars on a regular basis down those roads is a real concern to residents, and this sort of equipment that Councillor Barthow is advocating is something that we hope can make a difference, because any lever we should pull to make those roads safer, we should. And on agreeing with Councillor Becker's point about the condition of River Park, and it's very welcoming to hear Councillor Lurney say that they're looking to promote more community organisations fulfilling that festival activity within the River Park, because I think that's something which the community would love to see. Local residents would love to see more Winchester district based events is cropping up, rather than maybe the larger national events which don't necessarily have the same love and affection for our public spaces as local residents do.
Thank you. We seem to be sliding into debate, so just any further questions before we slide a little further? No, so we'll move on to debate then, please. Any debate at this point? Councillor Murphy.
Yes, essentially I'm keen to support Councillor Batha's request on the speed. Certainly talking to parishes outside who've had experience directly of using these, I think there's both the direct aspect of it reducing people's speed, so it has that impact, but also the positive feeling within the communities to see them there. So it's the reassurance as well. So I think it's something we should investigate.
Thank you. Before I have more debate there, I just want to make sure that you're looking at the recommendations for this report, which is to identify any budget issues to consider further in advance of setting the recommendations, consider any feedback to Cabinet in relation to the wider budget consultation, approve the additional revenue for the emergency tree works, and approve the allocation of town SIL for Chesil Theatre. So with those in mind, before we go through further debate here, I'll have my sixpenneth on the speed issue. I think introducing the visibility of people's speed is something that the unparished areas of this city strongly support. I know from my time going round the doors, speaking to people, speed is always an issue. I go into the parished areas in our district, and I regularly see these signs in place. I go into just over the border into Hairstock, actually, in Prysdean Lane, and I'm just surprised the other day when the sign flashed up at me 28 miles an hour. So I was clearly behaving myself very well there. Yes, councillor reached 28. So I think it is important that we act more like a parish council at this town forum. We're on a journey to becoming a parish or town council, and the ability to take forward initiatives such as being able to put in place firstly get the equipment, secondly the revenue in able to manage and run the equipment that we get on board to start addressing areas like this that we ought to be doing is so important as we go forwards into our budget. So, one of my considerations going forwards in the budget for future years is that we do have the ability to bring on board new ideas so that we're not constrained because officer time is 110% allocated, that there is a little bit of wriggle room for this forum to bring forward ideas that may be generated on a shorter time frame. I think that's a really important consideration that I would like to see in, and maybe we can have that conversation with the informal group when it's looking at the finalising the budgets going forwards. Any further debate from the group at this stage? Councillor Becker.
Thank you. I was just to bring attention to the fourth recommendation in respect of the Chesil Theatre. I was lucky enough to be given a tour of the Chesil Theatre last year while they were doing a dress rehearsal, and was absolutely blown away by the work that they do with young people from across the city, young people who would not normally be involved in the theatre, supporting young people both on stage, backstage, doing all the lighting and the sound, just brilliant work. So really happy to see that, and they're really supportive of that recommendation.
Any further debate? Seeing none. Councillor Learning.
Thank you, Chairman. Not debate, but in the light of members' support for Councillor Batho's proposal, I would like to propose an additional recommendation to the paper. looking at the corner there, which is that the provision of speed indicator devices be investigated for potential inclusion in the town account budget to be recommended to Cabinet in January.
Thank you, Councillor Lenny. I may come back to you for the correct wording on that in a second. So a seconder.
I'll second if no one else.
I believe I saw Councillor Todd's hand go up because it was a picture by one of the indicators at some stage. Okay, so I've recorded you as seconder, Councillor Todd, because your hand went up. I was looking that way. Apologies. Okay, so I will just Councillor Cooper.
Just a final bit of debate from me on recommendation 3 about the additional expenditure on emergency tree works, and say that does sound very sensible, as does Councillor Learney's suggestion. To a point that these sort of unforeseen costs would be a good reason to have a good reserve. And to say thank you very, very much indeed to our tree officers, who I know from experience react very quickly to concerns about unsafe trees and do a really good job in making sure that the tree estate, as it were, across the city is kept as safe as possible.
Thank you. Any further comments? I have a final one. We've not talked about the precept, and in the paper it outlines the funding available with an increase in council tax of 3% within the paper, and the amount of money that's increased by the increase in tax base that we anticipate as well. Clearly going forwards for our recommendations to Cabinet will be some indication of the precept. I'm conscious that we're on our journey to a town council, and I think we need to make the Cabinet aware, very aware of the financial model that the town council going forwards may look like as we go forward, so that the precept is set at the correct rate, whatever that correct rate is, as decided by the former group, the officers, and then ultimately this committee when we go through the final paper in January. Okay, so the recommendations, I think that I won't go through some of the comments for the notes here, because I think they'll be picked up from the discussion. So the recommendations are that we identify any budget issues to consider further in advance of recommending a town account budget to the Cabinet in January. This will cover things such as the post around speed cameras, my comments around the precept. I think the use of and the room to be able to actually do shorter notice work within the budget as we go forwards. Second, recommendations to consider any feedback to the Cabinet in relation to the wider budget consultation. I think that would certainly include feedback on the level of precept that might be required by the forum going forward as it transitions into a town council, if that is the decision that the CGR process comes to. Third recommendation, approve the additional revenue expenditure of 60k for emergency tree works funded by the town reserve. Fourth recommendation, approve the allocation of the town SIL levy contributions of £50,000 towards the extension of Chesil Theatre, subject to the meeting of conditions and release of grant by the 31st of March 2027. And the fifth additional recommendation proposed by Councillor Learney and the provision of speed indicators and the ability to accommodate that within the budget going forwards, the wording as you described it when you read the motion out, which I'm sure we picked up in the minutes. Yes, please, if you may. It's very clear.
Sorry, that the provision of speed indicator devices be investigated for potential inclusion in the town account budget to be recommended to Cabinet in January.
Thank you. So those are the 5 recommendations before us. Are they agreed? Thank you. Moving on to item 7, the informal groups update. Shuffle my papers. So in terms of the community governance review, I don't think there's a further update from the update I gave in my announcement at the beginning that the CGR process is underway at this point in time, and that we absolutely want and encourage as many people as possible to attend our drop-in meetings and to provide feedback through our online and other methods of collecting their thoughts on the proposals going forwards as to whether they would like to see a town council in place for the unparished areas within Winchester. So I don't think there's any further update on that, Councillor Bathurst, other than that. Okay. So second group, streets and open spaces, Councillor Murphy.
Yes, not as an update on the specifics of the group, but I did want to highlight to the forum something that you probably get intuitively from visiting our high street at the moment. We've got a very high level of activity. It is a buzzing high street. In terms of putting actual numbers on that, the latest vacancy rate for the high street is 2.3%, compared to a national average for high streets of 13.3%. And for the wider area of the city, which includes Brooks Centre, Colebrook Street, St George's Street, High Street, Middle and Upper Brook Street, Parchment Street, Thomas Street, Southgate Street and the Square, for that area, the vacancy rate is estimated at 5.7%. So in terms of the work of the group, much of it is the work we're doing is the challenges of the success in the centre. But it is great that we have confidence of businesses being attracted into the city. And then I wanted to part of that attraction is the specific events that we raise. So I just wanted to highlight the turning on of the city Christmas lights on this week on the 13th of November, and that is organised by Winchester Bid, which will, as ever, attract thousands to the city centre.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Murphy in that area? Councillor Reach.
I know we have a new gourmet hot dog shop is opening in the next couple of weeks. But my question is bins. I noticed an improvement in the cleanliness of the area behind God Begot House. Are we going to be able to sustain that through the busy Christmas market period?
Apologies. Yes, certainly the objective is to sustain the improvements, but also effectively to respond as the nature of the businesses changes within the city is going to be a continuing challenge. But it's good to have the positive feedback there on the changes that have happened so far.
Any further questions? I have one. I mean, I am personally continually frustrated by delivery lorries and so on parking on the one-way system. I think it's an ongoing problem. I'm not sure if it's absolutely under your remit, but it's certainly on the streets, in the Streets and Spaces group. Is there I'm looking at Councillor Loney here, cabinet hat on. Is there any feedback to the authorities that police manage the parking on those lanes, that this is a regular occurrence? Is there anything proposed to be done about it?
Yes, I think we're all very frustrated by some of what happens on the streets, and delivery lorries are part of that. As I think all members know, then there are restrictions to the times that delivery lorries are meant to be there. I think while it is frustrating at times, I think certainly the level of enforcement has increased in recent times, and certainly in a number of areas we're not seeing quite as much parking at incorrect times, but it is something which I'm pleased to take up with the county. We are looking to reinvigorate the Winchester movement strategy, and we have had positive feedback around that from county recently. So we're hoping that we'll be able to take up some of these issues in that forum before too long.
Thank you. Councillor Murphy.
Sorry, and to add to that, certainly one highlighted by residents to me today in Colebrook Street is the issue of those delivery lorries parking on the pavements and damaging them, which particularly for our elderly residents, makes them much more dangerous to use. And I think that is a wider issue in the city, so it's another one for us to pick up.
Thank you. Moving on, culture. Councillor Tippett Cooper.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I have a update on the Buttercross, which Ian Tate's gone. If you're really upset, not here, I will drop him an email. I'll drop him an email because the website has been now updated from the last meeting. But there's even more to update you on because it looks now that the contractor who we have appointed to start the refurbishment works for the Buttercross has now lined up February next year for the scaffolding to go up, and the actual works themselves should start around March, and that's all subject to the weather, but that's the plan. So we'll be seeing scaffolding around the Buttercross in February next year, which is great news. In terms of Hyde Gate, which is the other sort of key project of the culture group, we've now, as of last week, received a landscaping plan to go along with the building plan for the High Gate to submit to Historic England for their approval. And then all subject to planning permission being granted for the works overall, that should all also be ready to go ahead in due course. So progress on both fronts on the two major projects, and happy to answer any questions if there's any.
Does anyone have any questions? If not, I do. Firstly, the duration of the work. So do we know how long it will take with the scaffolding around the Buttercross and the work on the Highgate will take?
That is a good question, and I think because it's a new contractor, it's one we can definitely ask them and find out for you, Chair.
Thank you. I think it's important with scaffolding around such a significant monument in the middle of our high street that we're very clear on how long it will stay there, because we will be asked immediately when it happens. And the second question is around communication information. So it would be good, in my personal opinion, if there was some information about what's happening to the Buttercross on the scaffolding or around the scaffolding at the time it is going on. It can be some descriptive plates or whatever, or it could be a QR code, but something that will allow people to understand what is going on and the value of it being covered up for a period of time. If you can feed that back to the team on both sites, I think that might be helpful.
Chair, as ever, a very, very good recommendation, and I will feed that back to the team.
Thank you. Next group, climate and open spaces. Councillor Eve.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief one, although there's plenty going on. We've recently had work finish up Orams Arbour. Things progressing well at River Park, both with the pavilion and the planning for the footpath. But I do just want to say my thanks to officers. I think we've recently had a few maintenance things go on. And it's been very clear they've gone above and beyond. So I'd like to thank officers.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Becker.
It's just in addition to that update, really this morning, a few of us had the absolute privilege to attend the opening of Allegra's Ambition down at the Garrison Ground by the new leisure centre. Absolutely fantastic facility. I really urge everyone to go and have a look. It's sculptural, it's a piece of art, but it's also a gym for people to play on and to, again, they mentioned it this morning, but to once again mention the fantastic work of officers. They were there at the crack of dawn, making sure everything was perfect for this morning.
Thank you. Councillor Buffett.
Yes, I just wanted to supplement Councillor Eve's report with the situation with the multi-use games area at St Matthew's Field, because I've been trying to progress that with officers and sort of looking at putting an application for district SIL to provide that facility, and indeed, as discussed, sort of widen that potentially to looking at spaces in Dean Lane Park. I just was wanting to get some feedback from other members in terms of that application and support for providing that facility in the northern part of Winchester. So just wondered if I could ask for that feedback from other members of the town forum, please.
Any feedback for Councillor Buffett? Councillor Morris.
Well, as this is an area which is also in my ward, I'm very, very keen to support and endorse this proposal. There is not many any sports facilities within this particular area. There's only basic playing fields, and St Matthew's Field is underutilised. It's only used for dog walkers, I think, at the moment, and this would not affect them. They would still be able to walk their dogs. In fact, it's so underutilised that when we were doing a consultation with in the neighbourhood last year, I would speak to people whose gardens backed onto it, who weren't aware that there was actually a park on their doorstep. It is so hidden away, and so anything we can do to sort of raise its profile. And the other thing I'll add is I was canvassing last week and speaking to people on the doorstep, and a young man just said, "What are you going to do something about St Matthew's Field? Why don't you put some sort of sports facility in there?" And I said, "Well, it's funny you ask that. It's funny you should say that, because actually that's one of the things that we really want to do." So for the sake of that young man who I spoke to up in Airstock last week, I hope you support this proposal. Thank you.
Councillor Vanney.
Thank you. Obviously, the third ward member to speak on this, so you won't be surprised that I am very supportive. What I would add, though, in addition, is that when we have a look at the amount of SIL available in the town portion of community SIL, we do have, it should be sufficient to pay for a mugger at St Matthew's Field and still leave money left over. But it would be an appropriate time at the moment for other members in other wards to think about whether there are things that they would appreciate money being provided for, which would be possible out of our SIL funds, because it would be really useful if we could have a list to be looking at. We are aware that there is a risk to our SIL funding as a result of the LGR and the community reorganisation. So now would seem to be an appropriate point to ensure that we spend it for the benefit of local people.
Thank you. I think that's a really significant point. So thank you, Councillor. I think all of us should be looking at that within our own wards areas. Any further comments, Councillor Scott?
Thank you, Chair. I can add something that we went through a number of years ago in Stamble, when we sort of looked at sort of providing sort of an increase on our open space, and the lovely Susan Lord really had a keen sort of eye for improving Stamble recs, and in 2017 we were very lucky and fortunate to have a tarmac mugger put in into the lower rec in Stamble. So there's a few points I'd make about a mugger going in. Sometimes you have a small impact of young people drawn to it at first, and sometimes you'll get some residents saying, "Oh, young people are disturbing everything." But sometimes that get better over time. So you just have to sometimes suck it up a bit as ward members. But it's a great provision for young people. one of the lessons, I think, if we had a better budget in 2017, I would say it would have been useful if the Mugger in Stanmore was a bit wider and a bit longer. As much as it was great that it's gone in and very appreciative, but I think the comment straight away is the basketball area, the football area is a bit too small. And so if you're going to do it, try and do it as broad and as long as you can do. Budget, obviously, think about. The other thing also, Mother Nature has a way of actually trying, if they don't put the membrane down properly, and that's down obviously down to the contractor, the Mother Nature finds its way through the Mugger. So you have to keep an eye on the surface, because we've had some issues in the year or two it was put in that I had to revisit and actually make sure that the surface, because you want a flat surface for young children and youngsters to enjoy their sport. I also think, but it also at the same time, it's not young people and so forth like that, because we've got an Asian population that likes walking football. And I hear quite often from residents that the Winchester walking football is sort of league based and very serious. So a lot of our elderly go down to Eastleigh where it's not so serious and they really enjoy it. So providing a Mugger across your town and also promoting the Mugger in Stanmore is to say to some people who don't want to be seriously in a walking football league, what go and start to set up a little mini league for yourselves, and then maybe pensioners will enjoy the Mug as well. So we assume sometimes these provisions are always for young people, and high percentage of that, yes, it is really, but actually you'll be surprised if suddenly pensioners will go down and enjoy their walking football as well. So that's a couple of pointers that we would do. They only say be careful of your surface, because originally before that tarmac went in, they did put the Mugger on a grass field and it didn't work. So they set up with basketball hoops and a Mugger gold frame just in grass, and that just does not work. You can't bounce a basketball on grass, especially in this time of year when it's all wet and muddy. So if you're going to do a Mugger, you've got to actually make sure the surface is a hard surface. Otherwise, but we had to go through the sort of turmoil of actually having it in for a number of years on grass area, and it just didn't work. So we had to actually rethink that. So there's a couple of things just to hopefully offset if you do have the fortunate of the budget and that you get the go ahead to go in. It's a really great useful facility for your area to have a Mugger. And I think if Emma Back was here, she used to come a lot to say to us as a forum, we need more Muggers around the area. So there's a call out for her, because she doesn't come much anymore, but Emma Back used to always say that a lot as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Butler, do you just want to say a comment about Emma?
Yes, you mentioned Emma Back. She was going to be coming, but unfortunately was unable to attend. But yes, she actually did provide some comments, really just to make us aware, as you quite rightly point out, that there are a very low number of Muggers currently in the town area, relative to the size of a population. And this, referring to the Muggering Week, there was a community campaign a couple of years ago and a previous SIL application. So there is a high level of interest both in Week, but also the survey found in Full Flood as well, adjoining the ward, primarily because, as we're finding, there aren't many spaces to put these types of facilities in, and certainly not in Full Flood. And yes, a new Mugger installation at St Matthew's Field would help serve not only Week but Full Flood, Takedown and parts of Harestock. Currently, a teenager living in Godwin Close at the top of Stockbridge Road near Harestock Road would have to walk more than 2 miles to get to the Mugger at Cromwell Road in Stanmore, a journey that would take approximately a third of an hour. A walk of similar length and duration would be required for a young person living in Takedown Meads. For both, the Mugger in Week would be accessed on foot within less than 20 minutes, still further than indicated by national standards, but far more reasonable than the current situation. So I think it's really just pointing out that there is very limited provision for this type of facility in the north of Winchester, despite what was promised in terms of King's Barton. Unfortunately, the provision there has been to a much lower standard or much lower sort of size than was anticipated. So it's really just to make the point for this facility in the north of Winchester. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bathurst. Councillor Scott.
It just added to that. So my first duty as deputy mayor was to open the mugger and the play area at King's Barton. I suppose again a good thing about that mugger, it's a cage mugger. When a number of years ago, a few of us went round different council areas to look at the open space, and Dom Hiscott took a lead sort of chairmanship of us going round looking at stuff, and we looked at a caged mugger and stuff like that. Again, whether it's because obviously the Stanmore one's an open mugger and the King's Barton is caged, and I don't know whether that's a good way of it being caged or whatever. But actually, I went in to try and score a penalty as well, and so I hit the post. But there you go. But it's a good facility there. But I think with the situation, you can't sometimes be, so if you're going back to a young person's perspective, is they like things on their turf, they like things on their doorstep, and not that they wouldn't use King's Barton or wouldn't come across for a long distance to Stanmore, but if someone turns around and says, well, the King's Barton is quite near, why would you want one in a week? Well, because they'd want one in a week, and I think everyone would say that as well. So there's a point, there is one now in King's Barton, and it's a caged one and stuff like that with the 0 to 12 play area as well. It's really lovely. It's a fantastic facility there. It's quite close to the primary school there as well. But I would say if you can get one yourselves, get one yourselves.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Any further comments? I've made my comments now. So thank you, Councillor Scott, for your wise words of experience, which I think we will take on board. Secondly, I like the idea of walking football. I think the councillors could possibly enter a team for that. So there'll be a bit of conflict of interest there. So
Walking rugby is available.
And thirdly, being a ward councillor in full flood, I fully take on board your comments, Councillor Batho, about the facilities in full flood. And you know, from my perspective as councillor in full flood, I'm thoroughly in support of the mugger in the area within your ward. It's close enough that it would be of value to the people in that area as well. So I think you have the support for many councillors around that area as well for those facilities. So thank you. Moving on, grants and community empowerment. So Councillor Aaron can't be here, but I do have an update for you. So I will. So from Councillor Aaron. So the update is, in the past, small grants have had an underspend, which has been lost at the end of the year. This year, however, things have been much busier, which they are thinking it's because of the reduced grants from Hampshire County Council. The recipients so far this year have included Friends of St Giles for power tools, and which they're now allowed to use, which is good. New Life Church in Stanmore with support for mental health sufferers, and Joyful Jams, but it's got nothing to do with jams, and I was surprised to find out, but it's movement sessions at Winchester Hospital for elderly people. You can imagine them jamming. They've also turned down a couple of requests for grants for good reasons, so they do actually validate these grants very carefully. And also to add my thanks to the finance group actually and team for ensuring that the grant funding going forwards has not been cut as was originally planned to be, so it will be maintained at, I think, at the £60,000 level. And lastly, a request from Councillor Aaron to councillors that if you have a grant application from an organisation in your ward, please try and attend the session where the grant application is discussed. It's really important. I've attended once for St Paul ward. It's very worthwhile, so please do attend if someone's put their name forward for a grant from your area. And secondly, we need to spread the money still further, and so we are looking for more opportunities for unknown charities or groups at the moment, but we do need to find more places in which to spread the money, and we know they're out there. So that was the update from Councillor Aaron. So I think that covers it. We won't give an update from the finance groups. We went through the paper today. Thank you. Moving on, item 8, work programme for 25-26, which is in your packs, pages 23 to 24. We have in January, we have the town account budget for 26-27. Will be brought to the committee. There is no business at present in March, but I do have an item that will be added, and so I have had a request from one of the members here for us to invite the police here. So I've the officers kindly make contact with Chief Inspector Bishop for me, and I'm pleased to say that she will be coming to either the January or the March update. I believe I spoke to her on Sunday. I believe it's the January one she'll be coming to provide an update on policing in Winchester and the opportunity for us to ask questions at that meeting there. So we'll get that added to the forward work plan as and when the date for that is agreed. So I think that brings us to the end of the meeting at 7:40. So thank you all for your participation this evening, and we'll close the meeting at that point. Thank you.